Oof. That was a rough one, dude. That was a tough Game 5 to watch. Your Miami Heat, they lose 110-97, and quite frankly, that there's a little window dressing on that score from a spirited fourth quarter with your two stars on the bench. Boston absolutely hit Miami with a haymaker out of this one, turned them over like crazy, getting a ton of second chance points, and Miami just couldn't get any stops. It was an absolute annihilation from starting lineup to starting lineup. You look at the starting lineup for Boston today, you had four guys score over 20 points. Everybody but Al Horford did for them. And then for Miami, your highs from your two stars today, Bam had 16 points and Jimmy Butler had 14 points. And that's just not good enough for a closeout on the road. Maybe at home you can have a game where like a bunch of guys are lighting it up, but you think about tonight's game where you don't have Gabe Vincent, who has been absolutely unbelievable in this series. You're starting Kyle Lowry. You need Bam Adebayo and you need Jimmy Butler to step up, and Bam Adebayo could not stop giving the ball to the Celtics, and Jimmy Butler just really didn't have that next gear in him. We haven't really seen that since the face-off with Grant Williams, to be honest with you. And you're in this situation now. You're still up 3-2. You still have a golden opportunity at home. I don't believe in momentum of a series in that I don't think that Miami is starting to tumble and can't bounce back. I think they have shown that they have a great ability to do that. We know that Boston was talented. This is probably where the series should have been, all things considering. It just is, it was a weird route to get here. But the thing that does stink about tonight is the thing that is upsetting, I think, if you're a Heat fan, which I think you have a right to be upset about, is you had a Boston team that you felt was broken. I mean, like all of these guys were sitting here and they had to watch that game 3 and they were saying how much they embarrassed the organization and all of the world's coming down on them. You don't want to lose an opportunity to break it, And I think that Charles Barkley said it best. He's like, this is a front-running team, and when things are going good for them, things are going really good. And the thing that's been disappointing about Miami, and they did this in the series last year and this year, if they can show any pushback, if they can show any fight, I think they have a good chance to get back at Boston. I really do, no matter what the deficit is. It's why when I watch these games against Boston, especially the last 6 quarters, I haven't really turned it off because I'm like, I just feel like if they could get a couple of stops and hit a couple of threes, like they'll be back in it. But it was the stops problem today. Miami couldn't stop a nosebleed. Boston, was just relentless from 3 points today. I mean, they were 16 of 39 from downtown. All of their starters, except for Al Horford, were lighting it up. Jaylen Brown had 3 from downtown. Derek White was 6 of 8 from downtown today. He was tremendous. Marcus Smart, by far his best game of the series. He not only was lighting it up from downtown, he was aggressive. He got to the free throw line a ton. He had 5 steals. Was a menace to Bam Adebayo today, was a menace to Jimmy Butler, was a menace to Caleb Martin. Marcus Smart, in a lot of ways, was, I think, the Celtics' best player today. But, I mean, there's a lot of arguments for a lot of guys on the team. They played tremendous. They really, really did. And, I think for them, it's such an interesting thing on confidence because you have a team that goes from broken to feeling okay. They had a pretty free and easy game to – now they probably are feeling great going into Miami. They mentioned the success that they have had in that building. This has been a weird series in that the road teams have a lot of success, which is kind of why I don't look upon Game 6 as this pressure cooker must win for Miami. But I just think that Miami hasn't played good basketball in a game and a half, and really 2 games, because it wasn't like their best effort. And so you just need to get back on track in a big way. Some of the things that really have me concerned with Miami are really health related. It's wondering about Gabe Vincent. There was a report from Ali LaForce that he should be good to go for Game 6, but you don't know. It's an ankle. You don't know. It's squirrely. They missed him tremendously today. Then on top of that, you have Kyle, who, I mean, when he plays this poorly, you're knowing how he looked when he was hurt, it's hard not to look at him and be like, well, he must be banged up again, which is something that is a challenge with an older team with these 1 days off between, and I do think that maybe that's something that's catching up with Jimmy. I don't know. Jimmy is certainly been dealing with the ankle thing. He's been dealing with just, I don't know, general soreness or whatnot. But so I don't know if that has to do with his aggression. I don't want to use it as an excuse because he didn't play good enough. And certainly he gets all the flowers and he gets the Jim VP chance and he gets all of that stuff from the Heat fan when he's excellent. Today, he was not. He was not good enough. He was not near good enough. And Boston, after the whole Grant Williams thing and Jimmy, having that pose for the ages, and then the other day where he's thrown the timeout at him, Boston's been able to really shut off the water on Jimmy. They've done a good job. They've thrown Rob Williams on him a couple of times. They've blocked some shots. It hasn't been necessarily the panic. They've been trying to just guard their yard on him, and I think they've done a good job. And it's shut off a couple of other things too, because it hasn't opened things up for the shooters because they're so desperate on Jimmy. Max Strus he's been a ghost these last few games. Thankfully, Duncan Robinson has had this crazy resurgence where it's not even all threes. Duncan Robinson was just doing it all, and Duncan Robinson's stat line tonight: 18 points. 9 assists. Duncan Robinson had 9 assists. Duncan Robinson, this dime maker all of a sudden, who's just getting things open and carving people up, is just tremendous. And if he didn't get into foul trouble, which he did in the first half because he got like that classic Duncan Robinson 2 fouls in 2 seconds. But other than that, he could do no wrong today. Duncan Robinson was amazing. Haywood Highsmith got a lot of PT today. He played 35 minutes and deserved every single one of them. He was 3 of 4 from downtown, 6 of 9 from the field. He had 15 points. He was really, really good and gave Miami some punch. Caleb Martin was okay. Caleb Martin was, not too shabby. So, you got from your role guys in this classic game, you got pretty good effort from everybody. It's the starting lineup that was atrocious. And, for Bam, you got to take care of the basketball, man. He is, turnovers are going to be part of Bam's game. They are, but it can't be 6. You can live with a couple, 2, 3 maybe, but it can't be 6 because you're right, especially when you're right under the basket like that. That's supposed to be a high efficient place, and you can't be coughing up the basketball, and you can't be letting guards strip you. And when you have guards on them, you can't be, getting bullied by Jason Tatum. You can't. He's just got to flat out play better. And I'm not one, anybody who knows the channel knows I'm a big supporter of the guy. I love Bam Adebayo. I think that the criticism that he gets from the fan base is way overcooked on the side of they think every time that he has a bad game, the guy's a bum, when I would tell you he has more good playoff performances than bad. So we have seen it. The last time he did, he's had now a couple of stinkers where he's just given up the ball way too much to them. And him and Kyle have to clean that up because in a game where you don't have Gabe Vincent, you guys are the caretakers of the ball. You are, and it's just, you can't have your 2 guys who are supposed to be your playmakers giving the Boston Celtics mother bleeping 10 possessions. You can't. It's inexcusable. It's inexcusable in a game of this magnitude to allow yourself to cough at the basketball that much. I know Boston has a little bit of say in that because Marcus Smart was a menace on some of these. So, yes, credit to Boston for forcing some of that. But there were also some where Kyle just literally just passed it off to the Celtics. And he did that, I think, a good 3 times today. And Bam, same way, where he's just not controlling his body on the way. He doesn't know what he's doing. And he just ball over to the Celtics. And they were taking every single one of those and scoring. And that's really what made it so lopsided. If you go and look at Miami's numbers overall today, not a great offensive game because you only put up 97 points. But if you looked at the efficiency of it, you're like, they shot over 50%. They shot nearly 40% from downtown. An okay day from the free throw line. Boston certainly went there a lot more today. But the number of possessions, Boston got 70, the number of possessions and the number of threes that Boston was able to put up today was just huge. To put up 43s to your 23 and to outshoot you 16-9, But Spo said this in game 2. He was talking about what the key to the series was. It was to get them off the 3-point line, kind of live with the success they have in the paint. And I think a lot of that has to do with, you don't want these guys setting up in clean areas, putting up shots, because your best area is to do what they did to you, which is try and drive in the paint, try and strip the ball from Jaylen Brown, try and strip the ball from Jason Tatum. And instead, they let them get comfortable early with these shots, and that puts you in this position where, they're much more comfortable going to the rim. So, yeah, it was a really bad performance today. It was tough. You were just hoping that at one point Miami could just put their foot in the ground and stop things, but they just couldn't get any stops on Boston. It was crazy. The third quarter of this game, the Heat, they shot 13-17, which is 77%. And they got outscored by Boston 29-28. That's nuts. To not be able to, you can't get any stops on them in a spot like that, you're done. You're cooked. So Miami has to I think on the bad end of things, here's what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is the physical I'm worried about some of the injuries that are piling up for Miami. From start, Gabe Vincent, how is this ankle going to be if they don't have him? It's a huge blow. I think we noticed that today. I think people, I think underestimated how big a blow that would be, and especially on top of that, because it looks like Kyle Lowry is also a little bit physically compromised. So I'm worried about that. Even Caleb Martin tweaked something today. It looked like he tweaked a knee, so hopefully he's okay. But the health of the backcourt is really starting to catch up with Miami, it seems like. You already don't have Tyler, you don't have Vic, and for everybody who said, "Oh, we don't need Tyler Hero," I told you. But the health now of Gabe, on top of it, looks like Kyle Lowry is slowed up by something. He's got the giant ice bag on his knee. Got hit in the back of the head again today. So that has you concerned. Kevin Love, dude, Spo is rats off a ship on Kevin Love. Basically played him in the fourth quarter just to sit Bam. So, Kevin Love is like an afterthought now. So you have your two vets who were so big in the Knicks series. They've kind of been rendered useless in this series. So that's a concern. But ultimately, just like it did for Boston, you have to get your stars. Playoffs is about stars. It is. Yes, you can get big performances from your role guys, and it's nice. These teams use, as you can see, these guys have capable players who can step up in a moment and be big. But Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were not good early in this series. Your stars were better, especially games 1 and 2. And the last 2 games, Jimmy was okay last game, but he wasn't a rock star. Bam turned the ball over willy-nilly, and I think today they were both bad. I don't think they gave you nearly enough. You can't sit there and look at what Boston was able to get from their starting lineup and see what you were able to get from your starting lineup. So I think that it's as simple as that. Those guys are capable of playing much better. They have to if they don't want to be on the wrong side of history. And the Heat have to do a better job of taking care of the basketball. They have to. That's supposed to be their bread and butter. That's supposed to be what they do. And much like how they kind of flipped the script on Boston with the shooting, Boston flipped the script on them with causing havoc on defense and causing the turnovers. And Boston may have gotten back to something here in these last couple of games defensively, which was more of their identity last year. We know that they're all capable guys. It's kind of like the Heat. People looked at the Heat and their shooting this year, and they're like, well, they're terrible at shooting. It's like, yeah, but we know that these guys are capable of shooting better. And hell, look at what Duncan is doing right now. The one thing that I think you have to look at if you're Miami is, does Spo look at this and does he have some kind of does he play Haywood a little bit more? Does he play Duncan? Does he ride the hot hand? Does he take Kevin Love out of the starting lineup completely and just start Caleb Martin? These are things that are going to be interesting questions for Spo, just to kind of mix it up, because it was a bad start. You are going back home. That's a hell of an opportunity. That building's going to be rock on Saturday night. I can't wait to be boots on the ground there. And it was my original pick. I picked Heat in 6. It's not the route that I thought they were going to take to get there. Like everybody, I think after we saw what happened in Game 3, I thought the Celtics team was cooked and was ready to pack it up and ready to go to Cancun. Gutless effort by them in Game 3, and listen, they've shown a little moxie. They've shown a little moxie. But look, man, I still have belief in Jimmy and Bam. We've seen them bounce back from bad playoff performances before. They got a lot of experience with each other and setting the tone for everybody else. And this is, if you told this team when they entered this whole thing, hey, home game to go to the NBA Finals, to close this thing out, yeah, they take it every single time. People will sit there, they'll argue that Boston's figured something out, they're riding momentum. Look, the way you've played over the last 6 quarters, it's a hard thing to argue. They've certainly played something out. But ultimately, Miami put themselves in the golden position. They still have 2 more chances to close this thing out. Boston is still fighting for their lives. So the one thing I'm disappointed at is I don't get to put on my top hat. I don't get to have my soiree tomorrow. Instead, I take my cap off to the Boston Celtics. Hell of a performance by them. But make no mistake, it's still Boston forever.